Yeah. I get you.
Do, 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 do.
Hello, Alex.
Then, of course, we're gonna have to think about what happens next year when it mutates.
Hello, David.
Now, but that's the immunity to this. What does that leave alive? Some other stuff to multiply. You knock out one strain, and then another one comes along. Slightly different with the vaccine. But I've heard they attack this.
Sam?
Hey, Terry, how are you?
Hey.
I just asked Peter where his mask was. Wall.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason. Oh, great.
We're headed south for the holiday. Yeah.
Where you going?
We have a daughter in Savannah.
You do? You gonna vote?
Pardon?
You gonna vote?
I think she'll vote for the wrong party. We won't be there in January. Yeah, I don't know.
My little brother used to live in Savannah.
What's that?
My little brother used to live in Savannah.
Yeah, well, we lived in Dawtaw Island, just outside of Beaufort, for 18 years.
Oh, okay, that's right. You had said that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, we really, one of the toughest decisions ever
Yeah,
made.
what made you decide?
Allergies to hurricanes.
Oh, yeah. Because my parents lived in
We
Hilton.
lived on a tidal creek.
Oh, and you evacuated a lot?
We had a dock that floated 8 to 10 feet twice a day up and down. There was that much tide. Matthew came along and did 23 feet and took the pier head and we fixed it. Irma came along, did the superstructure. And you know what Mama said?
Oh, bye.
We're out of
Bye-bye.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, but don't you kind of go like this every time you hear stuff coming up this way, too?
No, it's,
No, because you're used to.
man, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, both times, we were out of country.
Oh,
Well, the island
And
was
I understand
evacuated,
what I'm asking
and they
is
locked
bigger
the
than it
gates.
sounds like on the surface.
Good afternoon. This meeting of the Pinehurst Historic Preservation Commission will come to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the public. The purpose of the commission is to approve certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when applications come before us. Our mission is to take no action except to preserve and approve that which is congruous with the special character of the Village of Pinehurst Historic District. I'm Eric Von Salzen, the chairman, and I'll ask each of the members of the commission, starting to my left, to state their names for the record.
Tom Schroeder.
And Lucy.
Barry Lurch.
Don Taylor.
We have one commissioner absent, but we have a quorum, and so we will proceed. Now, I normally say, also present are Peter Hughes. Peter Hughes is present remotely. Are you with us, Peter?
I am, sir.
Good. Feeling all right?
I am feeling good. I'm glad I could be here tonight.
All right, and I think I already said Richard Vincent is absent today. We have a quorum. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so anyone deserving to testify must be sworn in, and we are required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. The proceedings are video recorded. The first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of the last meeting. Is there any discussion?
One correction, I had indicated that I knew the applicant for the Cherokee Road, not the owner. I don't know if that makes a difference, Kelly, but.
Any other changes? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded to open the public meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now ask each of the commissioners to disclose any site visits or ex parte communications they may have had.
Starting with me, I have visited only one, and that was 245 Magnolia Road. The rest of them I've not personally visited, and I've had no ex parte communications with any applicants or owners.
I visited all, no communication.
I visited them all, had no ex parte communications. However, I want to disclose at this time that last week I met the owners of the property at, where is it? 85 Community Road. And the reason I met them is that on behalf of the Village Heritage Foundation, I gave them an award, a plaque, for the contribution that their house makes to the history and architecture of Pinehurst. We obviously had no discussion about this case. I was not even aware that this case was coming before us at the time, and I don't think they were aware that I was on the Historic Preservation Commission, but in any event, thought I should disclose that fact, and when we come to that case, if anyone thinks that that matter needs further discussion, we can do it at that time. Thank you. Ann?
I visited all the sites and no ex parte communications.
I drove past 245 Magnolia on the way here, and that was the extent of my contacts.
I did not visit one Carolina Vista, but I'm familiar with the location and visited all of the other three. And I would say, Eric, as a former recipient of one of those plaques, I think it's a great program that Pinehurst does for people who weren't lucky enough to buy something built in 1895 or 96.
I did drive by that site this afternoon, and they've actually got the plaque up already. They got it Wednesday or Thursday of last week, and they've already got it up. So I'm sure the plaque committee will be very pleased to hear that. All right. Peter, are you ready to be sworn in?
I am, sir.
All right. Peter Hughes, do you affirm that the testimony you should give to the commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Eric, before we go any further, there are two other people here we probably need to recognize, and I have a question as to Alex, whether he's going to be actually participating or only operating the computers to the point that he needs to be sworn in or not, because he is our representative here, and I don't know the answer to the
All
question.
right.
So I am here merely to provide backup or assistance and be the staff liaison if for whatever reason Peter's internet connection or anything else shall fail with his presence being here. So I am here as backup only. I think at that time, if needed, then I can step in and be sworn in and answer any questions for the commission. But as long as Peter's available, he's your guy.
Checking, and acknowledge Kelly's position is the only other thing.
All right. So we've done the minutes. We're in the public hearing. And the first case, if we're going on in the order that I have, is 245 Magnolia Road. Is that?
Point of order, do we need to either open or close the public meeting? I forgot which.
Thought we'd done that, but
Yes, we did.
we
Did open the public.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody's
Paid attention.
keeping watch on me. It's easy to miss these details, and then you end up with a fouled-up record. So I'll call the first case, COA 2020-00137, involving 245 Magnolia Road. Is the applicant present? Okay, would you like to come forward and be sworn?
Need to step right there to one of those microphones.
All right, would you state your name for the record, please? Sorry?
You need to use the microphone, or your voice won't be picked up on the record. You may sit.
I'm sorry.
Hope Manus.
State your name.
Hope Manus.
Thank you. And do you affirm that the testimony you should give to the commission in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, Peter, would you like to present the case?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This public hearing is to consider a request within the Pinehurst Historic District for construction of a new accessory structure, which is greater than 144 square feet and located at 245 Magnolia Road. The property can be further identified in the Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 855-212-974-240. The property owners are Don Sneed and Jeffrey Clark, and the applicant is Hope Maness. This is a front elevation of the structure at 245 Magnolia Road. There's some background on the property. The primary structure at 245 Magnolia Road is listed within the National Historic Landmark Survey and is considered a contributing building. We've had two previous COA applications for the property, one in 2010 for a minor COA replacing a roof, and a major in 2012 for an addition and exterior alterations. All but one of the adjacent properties is listed as contributing structure, and that is 255 Magnolia. The reason why that structure is not listed as contributing is because so many changes to it occurred that made it no longer a contributing structure. This is the notification area for the case before us, 245 Magnolia. In total, there were 5 properties notified, including the applicant and the homeowners at 245 Magnolia. This request is before the commission because according to the Pinehurst Historic District guidelines, new construction or additions not considered to be minor work are considered major work. The applicant is proposing construction of a new detached single-car garage. The proposed structure is zoning compliant, and the applicant has stated that all building materials will match the existing materials featured on the principal dwelling. In addition to the garage, there is one small existing accessory structure, which upon staff's visit to the location, that accessory structure is no longer. Here is the site plan submitted by the applicant. As you can see in the lower left corner where my cursor is, the garage is located in the rear of the property, which is in conformance with the Historic District guidelines for garages be located behind the primary structure and in the side or rear yard. This is the front and rear elevation of the structure. The front elevation does show one deviation from matching materials, which is the metal roof. The applicant has provided a sample of that metal roof, which we'll talk about later. The general architecture of the structure is lap siding, which is actually Dutch to match the rest of the house. And You have multiple different window styles, mainly a 2/2 window style. This is the left and right elevation. And here's the first floor plan of the garage. And then here's additional photos taken by staff and submitted by the applicant. So the applicant submitted photos this time as proof of their material, what they're going to do, because they're matching everything there. They're matching the shingle, they're matching siding. And so as you can see here, we go from one slide to another. And the windows that they're proposing are 2/2, which matches what's existing. They're proposing asphalt shingles, which matches what's on the primary structure. And then we also have the Dutch lap siding, which is matching as well. Here's another photo from the side. As you can see, there kind of has that eyebrow feature above the window. I kind of see that as something that's similar to what they're doing with the metal roof over the entryway of the garage. They have a brick foundation on the main structure, and again, that Dutch lap siding is clear. And here's a photo of that rear elevation from the previous one. They've actually updated this. I actually messed up and did not update this slide. This is the front elevation, which they submitted a corrected elevation for it. Here we have the Dutch lap side being pulled out, the eyebrow detail of that garage with the metal roofing. And then on the application, it says block foundation, but it's actually a brick foundation, and it's not visible on the elevation. Here's an additional photo of the side, just showing where that accessory garage will be located on site. This was the material submitted, and as you can see with the materials list, they're matching all existing. They're matching it with white paint, and they're matching existing material with all their material except for that metal roofing, which is here. They provided a metal roofing sample from K&R Metals, and it does meet the thickness requirements of the guidelines. At this time, I would like to submit the following to the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's materials, photo, site plans, and the findings of fact.
Thank you. They will be admitted into the record. Are there any questions for Mr. Hughes at this time from members of the commission? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the applicant. Ms. Manis, you've heard the presentation by Mr. Hughes. What would you like to add to what he's told us?
Just that the owners would like to add a garage because they don't have any storage space on their property, and they would really like to have approval for that.
Okay. Any questions of the witness, of the applicant?
I have one.
Yes.
Like you've got a couple of light fixtures flanking the garage. Can you speak to those a little?
We have not selected those as of yet, but they will be something that goes, with the house as far as architecture goes of the house, of the garage. I don't believe so.
Other questions for the applicant?
Actually, sorry, I do have one more. On your metal roof, apparently there's a photograph of the cross-section of the roof. Peter, can you bring that one up? Not the drawing, but I guess it's a cut sheet from the manufacturer, right there.
Yes. No. It's not a 1/4 inch wide. It's regular standard panels. No, it's not standing seam. Yes.
Maybe a question I should have addressed to Peter before. Noted that the foundation of the garage will not be aligned with the foundation of the principal structure. As any of us who drove by, it's because there's a significant slope in the property.
That is correct.
Which to me implies that the standards assumed that all lots would be flat. This does not make it, this does not make it incongruous, or this does not make it not congruous in my mind.
That's correct. The topography of the lot influences the alignment. So in this case, her non-alignment to the foundation of the home doesn't make it incongruous with the rest of the historic district or inconsistent with the guidelines.
And I also don't think the foundation would be visible from the road either.
That a
I can't
question?
speak to that, but probably not. Most of the foundation, if you look at the photo that I'm pulling up on screen now, is hidden by landscaping. And then if you go to the side view, you could probably see it at a certain angle, but at the same time, it's also hidden by landscaping for the most part.
But the door of the garage is street facing, so presumably that's going to be flat. You're going to see no foundation there at all, but so you can roll into the garage with a car if you wanted
Yeah.
to.
That is correct. And street-facing garages are allowed, it's just multiple street-facing garages are not recommended by the guidelines. So she's fine with just a single-car garage facing the street.
Another question for you, Peter, actually, while you're still there. The roof pitch you had indicated. Can you, I don't know if you want the applicant or yourself to further?
So I would ask the applicant just because they could better speak to it, but what Miss Lucy's getting at there is that the roof pitch of the garage is slightly different than the roof pitch of the principal structure. You have a 10/12 pitch, which is pretty steep. And then the rest of the roof line for the main structure is more flat, which would not be necessarily consistent with the guidelines.
So does that make it a problem?
I think what Ann Lucy is looking for is just an explanation for the design.
I mean, that's just what the owners ask us to do, as far as the design work went.
Are there any practical reasons that you're aware of that the roof pitch could not be changed to conform to the guidelines?
I mean, there's not any that I know of that would keep it from being changed. They just ask for it to be a steeper pitch.
Any other questions, or shall we move into discussion among the commissioners?
Eric, just to clarify, I don't have my findings of fact. As you guys know, I'm kind of working, I guess, shorthanded in a way. In my findings of fact, is that listed as a recommendation or is that listed as a requirement for the pitch of the roof?
I believe it's a recommendation.
Okay, I just want to make that clear too. I'm pretty sure it was a recommendation as well, which means that it's not necessarily required that the pitch be changed. It's just a recommendation within the guidelines. It's the difference between those must and those should words again. So those recommendations are should, and the commission can determine whether or not it's okay or not.
On page 11, Peter and members of the commission, it stated, summarizing the requirements, accessory buildings must, emphasize must, be equal or lower in height than the primary structure, and that is satisfied here. And the roof should, underscore should, have an equal or lower slope than the primary structure. So you're correct in your recollection that that's a recommendation, not a requirement.
Okay, I just want to make that clear for the record.
All right. If there are no further questions, discussion by members of the commission.
Question myself there. Eric, does that mean that this is not in conformance with the guidelines? Because it says should.
Yes. So it is a guideline, but it is not a mandatory requirement.
Right. So that means it's not, it is in conformance with the guidelines.
I see, it is in conformity to the guidelines.
Okay.
Satisfies, so far as I can tell, going through this material, all the must requirements that we have. And then if you say the shoulds are merely recommendations, which I think is the way we generally read that, then it hasn't violated that.
Well, and in this case, because the attitude of the home is different from the attitude of the garage, you would take a lot of work to be able to determine that this pitch is different.
Well, I think
all I'm just saying is that from the front of the way the roof of the main structure is, it's parallel to the street. That's the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the proposed garage is perpendicular to the street, the pitch. So you won't see the difference, is my point.
Terry, is your question in essence whether, were we to move to approve this, we would use the first section or the second? That it is in conforming or is not conforming nevertheless?
I think he said that it is conforming.
My understanding as well.
Weren't we enumerating the variances with guidelines at one point, or not doing that?
My understanding were if it were a must, then we would have to note why we're not complying with the must.
There are darn few musts, right? So-
It's a should.
Yeah, no, I know.
Should
but
is
it's
just a
still guideline.
recommendation.
It's been written down, it wasn't, you know.
But if
so I-
it's, if it's deemed to be congruous, then we don't have to note things which are not congruous because we're assuming that in entirety it is congruous. Whereas if we were approving it and it were deemed possibly not incongruous, then we would list the reasons why we were nevertheless.
Well, the purpose of my question was to figure out which of the two orders we use. That's
Right.
the purpose of my question.
Well, let me address that. I believe that in those terms, the question is whether or not it is in conformity with the guidelines. I think if it does not, if the pitch of the roof is a guideline, it's not mandatory, but it is a guideline. So that I would say, my own interpretation is that we would, in this case, if we're going to approve this, we would use the second form of motion. If anybody disagrees with that, we can have a discussion.
I agree. Go on record.
Okay.
Further, I think if we are accepting some things that are not in conformance, we should so enumerate.
Okay. And I believe that's the only one that's been identified in this discussion. Do you have something?
Yeah, I have a couple things. One similar is the width of the so-called seams on the standing seam roof. It's not really a standing seam roof, so we could, I suppose, argue that since it's not a standing seam roof, the quarter inch doesn't apply. In any case, it's not a must. The other matter is, maybe a question for you, Peter. It has to do with the light fixtures. The homeowner is.
I apologize, guys. I didn't hear like the last 15 seconds. So if you could just repeat yourself.
What I said was regarding the metal roof, since it's not technically a standing seam metal roof, that begs the question, does the quarter-inch recommendation even apply? But regardless whether it does or not, in my mind, it's in conformity.
Yeah, it's a recommendation. It's not one of those musts in the way that I look at it. But then you also said something about light fixtures at the end of it.
Yeah, that was the second thing was the homeowner, as I understand it, has not yet selected light fixtures. I don't know if the guidelines even, or they're silent on light fixtures.
They are very much so. But the applicant has stated on the record that they will be congruous or similar to the architecture of the home. So that there's that. If someone came into me with her light fixture change in their garage, I couldn't even issue a minor COA because there's nothing that addresses it. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I would just say that they're going to be okay.
I also should point out that it appears in the photograph of the front of the house that there are, in fact, a couple of light fixtures flanking the front door.
Yeah, it does look like that. So we could just get something to match that.
Oh, great. Problem goes away.
Yep, problem goes away.
Any further discussion?
Just a quick question, and I apologize, Peter, if you said this, but are all the colors that are proposed to put on this, on the palette? the village palette?
Yes, they are. They're matching the existing color palette. The one deviation is that roof, which is a charcoal color, which does fall within the requirements of metal roofs being a dark color.
Okay, but just because it matches the house may or may not be in the color palette. That's my question. I understand that they're saying they're going to match
The
it.
house being white is within the color palette.
Okay.
And while we're on it, the window is at variance with the house too, right? The window above the garage door, I think, was, Peter had indicated it didn't match the house. window?
That is correct.
report?
That's the one window that doesn't really match what's on the existing house, but the rest of the windows on the accessory structure do.
Mhm. So I would just note if we're enumerating, unless someone has an issue with that window, but that it's a deviation from the guidelines.
Are we ready for a motion? And who wants to make one?
I would be willing to make a motion. So which one? I move that the project as proposed is not in conformity with the guidelines. Nevertheless, the applicant has satisfied the burden of persuasion, and the project, subject to any conditions imposed by the commission, is deemed congruous. The specific issues which were found not to be fully in compliance were that the pitch of the roof was steeper than the primary building. The foundation of the addition was not in alignment with the primary structure due to elevation changes in the land itself, and that the window on the front elevation did not match windows of the primary structure.
Second.
Made and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? 6-0, it passes. The next motion? We've got one more motion to go.
No.
We have
That's all right.
we have one more motion to go. We have to approve the certificate of appropriateness.
I have lost the language for that, otherwise I would be happy to.
On the
It's in the
back.
back.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 245 Magnolia Road.
Second.
Seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now we're done.
Now we're done?
Passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have your certificate of appropriateness.
Ask that guy right there behind you
Alex?
that's standing in the door. He can tell you the answer to that question.
All right, we'll move on to the next case, which is 80 McCaskill Road, COA 2020-00155. Am I correct, Peter?
That is correct.
And is there a witness for the applicant? So you come forward, sir?
You are the applicant.
Okay,
Have a seat.
come forward.
Could you use the other mic?
And would you state your name, please, for the record?
Travis Wallace.
Watson, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you should give to the commission matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Peter, would you like to present this case?
Yes, sir. This public hearing is to consider a request within the Pinehurst Historic District for exterior modification of the primary structure at 80 McCaskill Road. The proposed exterior modification is replacement of rear doors, which do not match the style, material, or dimension of the existing. The property can be further identified in Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 855-211-762-114. The property owner is Watson Plates LLC, and the applicant is Travis Wallace. This is a front elevation photo of 80 McCaskill Road. It is a single-story white brick building. The primary structure at 80 McCaskill Road was constructed in the 1970s and is not listed as a contributing building. 80 McCaskill Road has a 5-part facade, so it has multiple different elevation sides to it, which makes it very interesting. No previous COAs have been issued for the property. In total, there were 9 properties notified for the hearing, all but the property in question is a contributing structure. This is the notification map of the 9 properties that were notified. In addition to the owner of the property at 80 McCaskill Road, the applicant, Travis Wallace, was also notified. Standards of review: the addition or removal of windows or doors is considered major work. It also is under minor work This does not meet the minor work standard, replacement of doors and windows that are the same style, material, size, and color as the existing doors and windows. The applicant is proposing to replace the sliding glass doors that are existing with French doors on the rear of the structure. This is an existing photo of the rear of the structure. As you can see, there are existing French doors. They're on the right, but here on the left, you see those very large sliding glass doors. And here's another angle to show you the full extent of the sliding glass doors on the rear of the property. The applicant provided a bird's eye elevation. I've indicated there on the site plan just to orientate everybody where the sliding glass doors are located. This is a rear elevation provided by the applicant showing those French doors on the rear elevation, and then this is the courtyard view of the application. Once again, it's French doors replacing the sliding glass doors. And then staff took some additional photos kind of showing that the French doors and the dividers and the window breakup is similar to the existing doors on site. And we actually have a second pair of French doors existing on the left side of the rear elevation here, as you can see where my cursor is. This was the applicant's material list. As you can see, the trim of the doors is going to be wood. The proposed material is wood, and the proposed color is white. The glass sliding doors are existing. The French doors are proposed, and the proposed color is white. The proposed color and material is compliant with the historic district guideline. This is the door sample provided by the applicant. As you can see, it's 2 French doors with, I believe, 12 dividers, my bad. At this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photos, site plans, and findings of fact.
They shall be admitted into the record without objection. Any questions from the commissioners to Mr. Hughes?
Got a couple.
Okay.
First one is on the National Historic Landmark Survey table that you have in the package. Item 4 on mine list is 1916 in the contribution, and I believe yours that you presented listed as a yes? Oh, you just had it there. You went to the...
My bad, wrong way.
There you go. Item 4.
Item 4.
You show 1916 with a yes after it. My package shows 1916 with a 1916 after it. So that second 1916 should be a yes. Is that correct?
That is correct. I apologize for the error. I will update the staff report accordingly.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
No, you're right.
Then the other...
Or to be commended, Tom, for the care.
Thank you, Tom.
I just...
You read this? There's only one other member of the commission who I think reads things more carefully than you, but we'll have to see. Maybe closer call than I thought.
I'm not trying to be, sticky, but it's things that the record needs to be corrected on. And
I absolutely agree.
Tom's doing his job. Leave him alone.
And then on 2 of 3 of the application, and this may be your question, Peter, or it may be the applicant's. It says include demolition, and it's marked a yes, and then kind of got the word sort of afterwards, so I'm not sure what sort of means.
So I wrote sort of. So when we think of demolition in the historic district guidelines, we think of things coming down. In the construction world, it's a little bit different. He is taking out something and replacing it with something else, which is going to require some demo work. So he marked it as demo, and I put sort of on there so that we can have this conversation where that's not actually correct for our purposes. It is correct for building purposes, but not correct for our historic proceedings.
So then I'll ask the applicant a question then, to follow up on that?
Why don't you hold that?
Okay. Yep, I will.
Any other questions for Peter?
No other questions to Peter.
Ed?
Peter, on Exhibit E, I'll give you a moment. The rendering. There's what looks to be a really nice part of that rendering, but I see no recognition of that as part of this application.
They've already gotten approved for it.
Okay.
So they got approved. Patios and things like that can be approved through the minor COA process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Peter? Hearing none, Mr. Watson, would you like to add anything to what we've already heard?
Just for the record, I'm Travis Wallace. And
Wallace, I'm
Watson Place is Watson Place is the owner. Sorry about that.
I guess I thought you owned your company, owned the company, but, excuse me, I beg your pardon, Mr. Wallace. Do you have anything to add? Questions from the commissioners for Mr. Wallace?
I have only one comment that I think it's a huge improvement across the board.
Thank
Agree.
you. That's what we're after.
Looks nice.
Yeah, the only thing I object to is it's on the back of the building.
I know.
I drive by that street fairly regularly. I won't see those pretty windows, but there we are.
Okay, then now I can follow up with my other one?
Yes, now you can follow up.
Go back to that question I had where you marked down, and I understood what Peter said and understand that concept. Your definition of demolition and ours may be slightly different.
Right.
But just to clarify that, see, and I did raise it, all you're going to do is take out those sliding glass doors
Correct.
and put these new French doors in, and whatever ancillary trim work, et cetera, support work needs to be done to be able to do that. You aren't changing anything else other than those windows and doors.
That's it.
Okay. That clarifies the record then. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, discussion of this application.
Just got a couple of comments, and that goes with the conclusions of law that are in the package, and the last three of them, 3, 4, and 5, are really not even applicants simply because they're not street facing.
Right.
Those three are out, so the only two that we're looking at is 1 and 2 then.
My only question would be whether there's, given the fact that this is completely invisible to the street, and given the nature of this property house, how well screened it is, whether that, there isn't a way for this to have been done as a minor COA. There's nothing objectionable in what's being done here. I think we would all say it's a significant improvement. That having said, I don't know how I would write that, but.
Peter, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I would have loved to have done this as a minor COA, but so when we go look under minor works, it talks about how replacement of windows and doors need to match the current dimension, style, color, detail, and that's what I can approve as a minor work. So approving it as a minor works out, and then you roll over to major work, it says addition and removal of windows and doors is major work. So I'm caught between the two languages there. I can't do it as a minor work, and while maybe it doesn't meet the fullest definition of the major work, it has to come before you because it's something I can't approve as a minor work.
Yeah, I think the answer is if it isn't minor work, the only thing left is major work, and it has to come in front of us. Is that correct, Peter?
Peter, I have
That
a
is
thought.
correct.
I have a thought on that I'll pursue with you outside of this proceeding and see whether it goes anywhere or not.
All right.
I just say, we could change the guidelines to exclude from some of our requirements things that aren't visible to the public. And we could certainly talk about that.
Right.
I think a concern would be, this may be one of those instances where there's absolutely no possibility of a public view, but usually there is, particularly if it's in the fall and the leaves come off the deciduous trees and so forth. People can see things from around the corner and so forth. It might just end up being more trouble than it's worth, but it's worth discussing.
Follow on to that thought is it is visible to its neighbors. They care.
It might be. Yeah,
I think in this case it isn't, but in a lot of cases it would be, even though not street facing, yes.
All right, can we have a motion?
I can do that.
You?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find a proposed major work at 80 McCaskill Road is not consistent with the Historic District guidelines, nevertheless is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact for the following reasons: that the French doors being proposed do not match the existing sliding doors.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I guess it's a nitpick, but if there's a piece of existing construction which is not in compliance, and you're not in compliance with a piece of work which is not in compliance, are you therefore in compliance?
Might or might not be.
That sounds like a lawyer.
Thank you. Okay.
That's not necessarily a compliment. All right, any further discussion? All right, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0, it passes. Are you going to make the second motion as well?
Sure, might as well finish it up. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 80 McCaskill Road with the conditions that were stated in the first motion.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6-0, it passes. You have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you.
For coming. Mr. Wallace, just wanted to say, Mr. Wallace. So I get it. Because I get very offended when people call me Von Sullivan. More often than you'd think. All right. Okay, so that takes care of that case. And now we come to next case, COA 2020-00156, involving 85 Community Road. And we have a representative here. Yes. State your name for the record, please.
Paul Milan,
How do you spell that?
Milan. You can call me Milan if you need to.
I always wondered how that was, whether that was pronounced like the city in Italy or not. In any event, thank you for coming. You raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you should give to the commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Peter, would you like to present the case?
Yes, sir. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider a request within the Pinehurst Historic District for a modification to a previously approved major COA that is not considered minor work at 85 Community Road. Property can be identified in Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 856-209-073-413. The property owners are Paul and Lorelei Milan, and the applicant is Cribbs Construction. This is a photo of the front of the house at 85 Community Road. The architecture that was approved for the accessory structure matched this architecture. The primary structure at 85 Community Road was constructed in the 1910s and is listed as a contributing structure. The accessory structure is not listed as a contributing structure. Previously issued COAs for 85 Community Road include a major in 2013 for additions and alterations, a major in 2020 for the renovation of the garage, and a renovation in 2019, which was a minor. In total, there were 9 properties notified, including the 85 Community Road address. This is the notification map for 85 Community Road. The homeowners and the applicants were notified. The standards of review, addition or removal of windows or doors is considered major COA. Modification to a previously approved major COA that does not meet the minor work standards is considered major work. The applicant was approved for a restoration of accessory structure that included the installation, construction of a doorway on the left elevation. Upon the field inspection, the doorway was not constructed. In its place was continuation of the previously approved shape siding. So on the left of your screen, you're going to see the previously approved left elevation that was approved about 4 months ago. And then on the right, we're going to see an existing photo that I took about 2 months ago. As you can see, the left elevation was proposed to have a door, and on completion of the project, a door was not installed. This is the material list submitted by the applicant. It's a left elevation proposed was fiberglass door. The existing or proposed material is now shake siding, and the coloring is Sanderling Swatch 7513, which is compliant with the Historic District palette. At this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photos, site plans, and findings of fact.
They will be received into the record. Questions for Mr. Hughes?
You have a question. Is the window different than the one proposed in the?
The window is different, but comparable to the windows on the front of the home.
But the COA approved a different window, right? The
That
earlier
is
COA?
correct.
Yes?
Yes, that is
Yeah,
correct.
so it's a window and a missing door?
Just the door. The window was communicated by them and was approved by staff.
I'm just wondering if the window's different, that's not part of this?
That is not part of this. So staff was able to approve that because you can't see this side of the elevation from the street. Because of the way that the structure is located at the far end of the property and of the fact that they have what I'm calling a she shed next to it, or maybe a he shed. They're so closely located, there's maybe 2 or 3 feet of space between the two structures, and you cannot see this side of the elevation whatsoever from the street.
And so, Peter, this is a retroactive approval to match what's actually been built.
Exactly. So if you guys remember, maybe 2 months ago, 41 Shaw modified their fenestration, and then also, I can't remember the one on Dundee, 310 Dundee modified how many windows and stuff like that, windows and doors. When you modify fenestration, you're adding and removing doors, and it goes to that issue where I can't approve major COAs, and by taking away a door frame that was approved, they've essentially removed a door without approval.
I had a question though, Peter. In the application, Exhibit A, it says the description of the change is to change the door to a window on the left elevation. That's not accurate, is it?
That's not accurate. It was to, I think the confusion there is that the applicant, my apologies, Cripps Construction, thought that the window was proposed there, or a door was just proposed there, and they put a window in, but in reality, there was a door and window proposed.
Well, the
So it's
only
just the
change
door.
is to eliminate the door that was originally approved.
That is correct, to eliminate the door that is originally approved.
But going back to the window a second, is that a minor?
Yes.
Considered a minor?
It's even just a staff approval of a change.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. Or couldn't you-
Yes,
It was considered minor, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Other question, Peter, as well. Back to my same document, Peter. Back to the National Historic Landmark table. You have 9, I have 8. Which one am I missing?
My guess is 15 Power Plant Road.
Got 20. Yes, that would be the one I'm missing. So there's one in there on mine, between 3 and 4, which is 15 Power Plant. And that is a yes or a no?
That is a yes. That is, the correct one is the one that I have with 9. The incorrect one, which I'll have to update in the staff report, is the one with 8. As you can see in the notification map, 15 was an adjacent property. It just was not included in the staff report of adjacent properties, but they were mailed a notification.
Okay. So I understand. That's all I'm asking. That's all I have of Peter.
Okay.
Anything else for Peter?
Peter,
Yes.
just to put it on the record, in my mind, the lack of a door there, although procedurally the right thing to do, is less of an issue to me than changing from 4/4 to 6/9.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I agree, I mean, it looks far different to me than the proposal.
But I think you'd have a very hard time actually seeing.
Yeah, right.
And if it was done under minor, we have no authority to challenge a minor work.
Right.
Whether we like it or not is not.
We have a First Amendment in this country, and we can express
Say,
our
oh,
opinion.
absolutely. I'm not arguing that point at all. I absolutely agree with the First Amendment. There's no
All
argument.
right, if there's nothing further for Mr. Hughes, Ms. Milan, do you have anything to add to what we've heard already?
No, sir.
Could you tell us how it came about that the door was eliminated from this building?
To the best of my recollection, I believe Russell Cribbs came over one day, and I believe it was after the foundation was built. We were kind of finishing up the exterior. And I think what was going to happen was the staircase that would have to been built would have come into the next space over, the she shed. And he just said to us, well, can we put the door inside? Because it's for a storage area inside the the structure. So they moved that to here, and that was it. And we didn't think anything of it until we were approached by, I believe it was Peter, saying that something was out of line.
Right.
So
Okay. Got it.
we apologize for even having to be here, to be honest with you.
That's our job.
Yes, and I think the window you see, if I'm not correct, I think you're seeing the screen. It may be a 4x4 in there as well. You just can't see it because there's a screen there, I think.
6 on top without any.
A
that's
6
good.
on, yeah, whatever, 6. I know it has the lines in it. I just can't remember the number on that.
Okay.
Okay? Yes.
But not part of this hearing, but thank you for the,
Okay,
for the
yes.
information. Okay, any further questions for the witness? Hearing none, any discussion among the commissioners? Motion. Someone's got to be courageous enough to try this.
Due consideration of the application package submitted and the testimony given, the Historic Preservation Commission concludes that applicant has satisfied the burden of persuasion, and the project as proposed, subject to any conditions imposed by the commission, is congruous with the special character and nature of Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with the Historic District guidelines. A certificate of appropriateness is hereby granted for the reasons stated on the attached page.
There is no attached
I
page.
think that's not the language
Not the
we're
right
supposed to
one.
use. We're supposed to use the separate document.
Rather than what's in that packet.
Okay. Try again. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 85 Community Road congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with the historic guidelines based on the testimony given, material submitted, and the findings of facts as amended, which
There's a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. And then
Turn it over.
On the backside.
Kelly passed them out, but she must have missed you.
She wouldn't have done
Right
that.
on your binder.
I move that the Historic wait a minute, where are we here? Right here?
Top one.
That the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 85 Community Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. It passes 6-0. Mr. Milan, you have your certificate of appropriateness. Your door is now legal.
Your lack of doors are illegal.
Lack of doors.
I think it looks
I
better
have
without
an
a door.
administrative question for Alex. Did we really charge this guy $500 to come back?
Yes.
Pardon?
He knows the answer.
is yes.
Yes.
Yes?
The answer is
Okay.
yes.
The
Would have
cost,
had to come back to
No, I'm
amend.
just curious.
Yeah.
cost of
But I
noncompliance.
commend you for
The other
getting your
point is
plaque
if-
up on your
if he
house
was
as
able to
quickly
approve
as
it
you have. Some
as
people
minor,
wait
it
months
would've saved
before
him
they put it
$500.
up.
Right, but
I
he did
drove
with the
by
window,
today
he
and
couldn't
saw it.
with the
I'm very happy to see it there.
We're grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah.
We enjoy it.
Thank
Plus,
you.
Jim Lewis is my neighbor across the street.
There you go.
I had no choice.
By the way, if you get yesterday's pilot. There's a nice story about the plaque ceremony, including quotation
Saw it, yeah.
scholar of the historic.
Is that you? I saw.
Thank you again.
It's a lovely house.
You're very welcome, sir.
Architecturally, but it
Thank
also
you.
has a very interesting history. Thank you, Mr. Milan.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, we come to our last case, COA 2020-0019, involving 1 Carolina Vista. Who's here on behalf of the resort?
Two somebodies, good.
We're smiling.
All right, we'll, starting from my left, will you state your names for the record?
Yes, my name is Calvin Berkeley.
And I'm Jim Compton.
You each raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You?
Here, would you like to present this case?
Yes, sir. The purpose of this public hearing is to consider requests within the Pinehurst Historic District, construction of an accessory structure at 1 Carolina Vista. Property can be further identified in Moore County Tax Registry by Moore County PIN number 856-213-032-663. Property owner is the Resort of the Pinehurst, and the applicant is Calvin Berkeley of Pinehurst Resort. This is a picture of the famous 1 Carolina Vista. 1 Carolina Vista is listed as contributing structure according to the National Historic Landmark, and some of the adjacent properties within the public hearing notification are also listed as contributing structures. Some background on the property, I'm not going to read each one. In total, since last month, there are 15 COAs that have been approved in the last 8 years for Pinehurst Country Club. 9 of them have been major and 6 of them have been minors. In total, there was approximately, I believe, 17 properties that were notified, and a variety of them were and were not contributing. A variety of them were listed as contributing and not contributing, as well as years built varying from the 1905 to 1970. This is the notification map for the hearing tonight. The area in red is Pinehurst Country Club. And then the area in the surrounding area could be Pinehurst Country Club, as well as very, very many other properties within the historic district. This request is before the commission because according to the historic district guidelines, accessory structures greater than 144 square feet are considered major work. The applicant is proposing to construct an accessory structure or a pavilion adjacent to the Cradle Golf Course. The location of the accessory structure will be highly visible from Highway 5 because of the topography and the lack of trees. The structure is architecturally similar to other accessory structures on the site. The scale of the structure is similar to other accessory structures on the site, and all major work must be approved by the commission. This is the project description that was included with the packet. This is a new new restroom, bar, and shade pavilion to be located on the Cradle Golf Course, overviewing the number 3 green. The structure consists of an 18 by 18 semi-conditioned bar and restroom with a wide wraparound porch. The applicant provided a proximity map. Here you can see in the pink here, the Cradle Pavilion is located here. And on the next slide, I've actually zoomed in to show that it is 521 feet away from the closest right-of-way. And then it's also 560 feet away from the clubhouse itself. This is the floor plan. It's a wraparound porch with multiple seating areas and a bar, and then a fireplace as well on what is sort of like the rear of the facade. This is the west elevation. This is what would be facing Highway 5 and looking out onto the Cradle. This is the east elevation. This is what's going to be the rear of the structure. This is the south elevation. This, I believe, is what's towards Morgantown Road. And then this is the north elevation, which would be towards the Pinehurst Resort. The applicant also submitted some renderings to kind of visualize this better for us. Here's that front elevation again. As you can see, there are 2 fire pits also proposed along with this application. No additional pathways are being proposed. The existing pathways and the idea of people just traversing the terrain to get to the location is the intent. As you can see, the chimney will be brick, and a lot of the porch will be of those square columns. And the one unique thing is the bar room garage door window, or drop-down door. It's something that's definitely unique to the character of this structure, but it's also something that's not explicitly regulated within the historic district guidelines, and the commission will have to look at that tonight. Part of our analysis, we kind of looked at the other adjacent structures, and I went out and took just the closest structures around, some pictures. This is the Pageant Learning Center. As you can see, it kind of has that horizontal lap siding, and if we go back to here on the previous rendering, we see that the main structure, the body of the structure, the enclosed area will have that lap siding. We got some columns, the main structure will have some columns, and it's also kind of tall compared to the rest of the things around it. I just went ahead and took a few more pictures just kind of showing that the detail of the Pageant Learning Center is similar to the pavilion that's being proposed tonight. I've also taken pictures of the Cradle Starter House, which once again, we see those rounded columns and those lap siding features. Both the starter house and cradle starter house will be smaller or lesser in height, but the new pavilion will be a little bit taller. Here's the submitted exterior materials list. They are proposing a fiber lap cement siding, which is congruous with the rest of the historic district because it's a material that's seen throughout and it's consistent with the historic guidelines. All the proposed colors are within the historic district guidelines color palette. The aluminum clad windows are dark bronze, which is compatible, and then the asphalt roof is a slate gray. The applicant submitted materials along with it to give us an example of what all that's going to look like. From left to right, we have the exposed fiber cement on the top left corner. In the center, we have the brick. In the right, we have the metal dark bronze. And then we have on the bottom left, the wood counter drink rail. And then in the center, we have the wood stone real soffits. And then on the right, we have the dark gray shingles. At this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photos, site plans, and findings of fact.
It shall be received into the record. Questions for Mr. Hughes?
Peter, in the standards of review on page 8, you state that the applicant is requesting to install multiple fire pits as recreational gathering spaces. Are we approving a specific number here? Are we approving 2, but they could put more in if they wanted to, or?
I think that's a question for the applicant. From what's been submitted, it appears like only 2 are being proposed with the chairs surrounding it, but there could be more in the works. I don't know the specifics.
Okay.
Peter, could you explain a little more your note about the window?
Yeah, so the window is a sliding down, drop down window. It's just not something that's talked about in the historic district guidelines. It's functioning sort of like a garage door in a way, but it really is just a bar opening. I think it's okay on a professional scale because the majority of the time when this is in operation, it'll be up and not visible. And the times when it's not in operation, the window will be down and it'll be nighttime and not visible. So I don't think it impacts the architectural character of the structure, but it necessarily could, be considered different from the rest of the historic district.
No rendering was submitted with the windows down at all?
Not within my record, no, ma'am.
Following up on that, Peter, if someone came to us with a single-family house, maybe they had a pool in the backyard and they wanted something similar, presumably the guidelines are, make no mention of this.
The only thing that I can think that is similar is the Easy Breeze screened-in pool rooms. That would be something similar. And the guidelines do allow for screening in porches and using that material. But once again, this is a different kind of opening. It really is just that bar countertop area being opened up to the outside for use. It's a window for sure, but at the same time, it's not functioning as a window.
Okay.
Any other questions for Peter? So the applicants who would like to speak next? Ms. Berkeley?
So to address the number of fire pits, it was just 2. So we have 2 fire pits and 1 fireplace was the intent, so it was really only the 2.
I'll say a couple of things about just the architecture in general, if that's okay. Just big picture, I think it was important to see the starter shed, the exposed rafter tails, I think are important. We're consistent with that. The hip roof, we wanted to keep the scale of the building down. Very similar shingle color as you see there, so we're trying to be consistent there. And then on a Pageant Learning Center, there were some brackets underneath the windows there. You also see some decorative brackets on buildings here. On the Pinehurst Spa, there's some curved profile to the rafter tail, so I feel like that's consistent as well. I do want to clarify one thing. I can't recall, I don't have the submittal here. The windows are white. The only bronze window is the garage door. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Or is there one on every side?
There's only one garage door over the bar, and it's really to lock the bar up. The intent is for that to look like a large window. The intent is that it will have muttons in it so that the glass will be broken down. And there's similar windows at the Deuce, if you've been there on the back side.
Going to be my question. It's functionally, I assume it's almost the same thing at the Deuce, which is to lock down the outside from over the bar, because it appears that way. But is it the same style? So if I looked at the Deuce, is that the kind of window, or is it?
I think will be broken down a little bit more. It'll have a mutton, and the intent is this window will have a mutton in it. So it's more like the glass will be broken down. It's not one large piece of glass.
It folds.
Yeah, and that's right, it folds. So it's an accordion window, so it folds like this.
So it folds from the top down. So I reach up, pull it down, and lock it.
Correct.
It doesn't roll up and down.
Correct.
Accordions, okay.
5, according to this rendering, 5 across. I don't know how many rows, but.
I think that's right. I think we've got to look at the detail, but about that, I think we want a vertical proportion to that mutton. So there may be multiple horizontals, but I think in general, we want the mutton proportion to be vertical.
Questions? Any discussion?
Kudos for fabulous design.
Right.
Garage door goes, in my mind, it's an operable window. There's nothing at all in the guidelines that prohibits any particular type of operable window, and only speaks in detail about double hungs, which this.
Okay, from construction. And
Does this replace that little RV out there?
We don't know.
Oh.
But this is going to be in the similar location as to where that is, right? Yeah, where it's up on that hill.
That's legend, right? Is that it?
The glass that's in that thing, one of our sections talks about glass curtain walls, reflective glass, painted or darkly tinted glass are not permitted. Is it a tinted glass at all, or is it just a piece of clear glass?
It'll be similar to the windows. It'll be a clear glass window.
Questions? Any discussion? To agree that if something's not prohibited, it's not prohibited.
How could it be prohibited if it's not prohibited?
That's right. Would someone like to make a motion? Who hasn't made a motion today?
I haven't.
Making all our motions. Ann, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I guess we're congruous and consistent, right?
Yes.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 1 Carolina Vista congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with Historic District guidelines based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact. With
Second.
amended state as amended based on the record. Oh, sorry.
Second?
Is it worth noting that we've only approved 2 fire pits, or is that an unnecessary detail? Who's what's
Peter,
been
we
requested?
have a record that states there'll only be 2 fire pits. Is that good enough for your purposes?
That's good enough for me. The plans only showed 2. If they wanted a third one, we'd have to
Good enough
do a
for me
separate
then.
application.
All right.
I'm assuming the more detailed plans that would have to go to planning would show exactly how many would have to be there.
That's correct.
All right, did we have a second?
Second. Yes,
Second.
I seconded.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that takes first
So
motion.
we'll move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 1 Carolina Vista.
Second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. You have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, I think the next thing we have to do is get out of the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Favor say aye.
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 All right, we have in our packets the minor work and staff approvals.
Do you guys
Anybody
have
have
any
any
questions
comments?
about those?
It's only 2, right?
That's correct.
Also have, so I hear no comments on those. We also have the
Schedule.
2021 Historic Preservation Commission meeting schedule, which everyone should have. I'm sure we'll all go home and put it on our calendars immediately. Is there any other business to come before us?
There is one request I'd like to share with you guys. There's an application in December that has requested a potential virtual meeting. I just offered up to you guys to consider and discuss.
The reason for the request?
So they are located in Houston, Texas, and they would prefer not to have to travel to be in attendance. Ideally, they would like to procure someone here to attend on their behalf, but the event that they can't, they would like the opportunity to attend virtually to not have to travel during COVID-19.
Okay by me.
Well, I'll express my opinion, which is I don't like virtual meetings.
I don't either.
Did
You guys are within your
I
right
think
to
there's
say
some,
no,
go
because
ahead.
they can find another person to represent them.
Say virtual meeting, it's just him being, the applicant being virtual, not
The owner?
Yes, there's a little bit more to that. When you have an applicant that's being allowed to be virtual, all those that have been noticed have equal right to be attending virtually.
I think there's more to look at here that we need to look at, and the thing that I brought up with Eric too would, I think, may or may not apply. So I think there's questions that I know I have based on what I've read previously about virtual meetings that I think we need to discuss and answer, and probably not at this point in
Is
time.
this the owner who,
Yes, the owner would like to make a modification to the home. And they live here during, I guess, the summer, and they live in Texas during the winter.
so, I mean, normally isn't the construction person?
That is correct. The project that is being discussed is not at the level where he necessarily needs a contractor to do it for him. I'm trying to be vague because we can't talk about it beforehand. So he is in discussion with a couple, I know that much, but he has not decided on one, has not contracted with one or anything like that. but he has submitted an application, and he was going to be on this agenda, but because he couldn't attend in person, he opted not to. So we moved him to the December agenda.
For the benefit of the other commissioners, Tom called to my attention before the meeting some new regulations that govern virtual meetings. This is not a virtual meeting because the commissioners are all here in as close to human form as we get. Even though Peter is virtual, he's not a commissioner.
I'm not a voting member.
Pardon?
I'm not a voting member of the
Right.
commission.
But and I'm assuming, but I haven't read the regulations, I'm assuming that if we allow an applicant to appear virtually, but we're all here, that's probably the same situation. And if other interested parties appear virtually, that may not trigger these new regulations. But I think, as Tom says, we need to take a look at those before making a decision on
I
this.
think that's probably something we need to direct to the village attorney to decipher. The requirements that allow us to go, in my understanding, and this is just off the cuff because I didn't know this was coming, my understanding that virtual meetings are allowed because of the emergency enactment that the governor has provided, which means the COVID issue. I'm not sure, and I think the attorney needs to weigh in on it, I am not sure that it would allow for any other reason to be applied for virtual things. In other words, typically, it's not accepted until we got into this COVID thing, and these rules only apply to the COVID thing. So that's why I asked you what the request was, because if he said, well, I don't want to be up here because of COVID, then I think what the guidance we have applies, but I'm not sure it's going to apply if I just don't want to be here, or I don't feel I can make it, or whatever. So that's why, but I think that's why I think the village attorney needs to weigh in on and give us some kind of guidance as to what we're doing. This is he said, you mean this stuff? This is true. This part of what Eric and I talked about basically says there's a new law enacted that says if any of us are not here physically, any of the commissioners are not here physically, then there are specific rules that apply to notification and a bunch of other things. My question tonight to Eric, and I think him and I agreed, was that we're all here. Peter's the one that's not here, but he's not a commissioner, so it didn't apply.
Was this permitted before COVID at all?
I don't believe it was. I don't think they could do.
There were some statutes and some clarification that have been given on what constitute remote participation in these meetings by certain boards, which has now been clarified and codified in some way. And to Tom's point, it came about because of the pandemic, but it's not necessarily in perpetuity going to have to be only related to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's only while there's an issued state of emergency by either the governor or
the only state of emergency we have right now is the COVID issue.
Correct.
That I'm aware, so that's why I referenced that. But the wording is fairly clear, which imposes a variety of procedure requirements for remote meetings held by public bodies during state of emergencies declared by the governor of the assembly. I'm not one to interpret that. It could mean I could do it for any reason I want, just because there's a state of emergency there, or was the intent of the law to say that only because that state of emergency had to do with a specific issue? So that before I would feel comfortable with understanding whether we should allow this guy to or not, I would highly recommend that we ask the village attorney to take a look at that. It's a new law. There may not be anything there that answers it, but at least it gives him
But this
an
would be
opportunity.
precedent setting.
And I think it goes beyond this board, if I may. I know, Peter, I'm sorry to step in here. I know you and I haven't had an opportunity. I didn't even know such request was there. But you are an advisory board. You are here by authorization of the village council. The village council had recently, after passing of this legislation, given clear direction to its advisory board saying, hey, guys, you can conduct such meetings. Before that, it's not necessarily up to this board to just decide when and how you're going to start conducting meetings, typically, right? So the village council did authorize all its advisory boards to operate in a remote meeting by the state statute and with the current executive order that Governor Cooper, the original executive order Governor Cooper executed, with limiting to the indoor gatherings to the number of 10, which we're back at now. What we have done recently, and this is a consideration of the board to have a discussion with village council, we have done so very similarly with our planning and zoning board and board of adjustment, where the particular members, or at least some, have expressed high level of concern of meeting in person during the pandemic based on certain situations. So they have reached out and discussed with the mayor, administration has been involved, and so it had been delegated from the mayor and village council that the individual boards figure out how they should handle that situation with an actual board member participating remotely.
And
All right, so-
that's where this new statute kicks in, too.
Exactly.
Because
So-
there are not new requirements if you do that.
So I think there could be a slippery slope if an applicant asks, this person you say yes to, this person you say no to. So I think it puts you guys in a pretty tough position if you even can or should make that call, at least now.
I would, I don't know if maybe as chair I can make a procedural ruling, and my procedural ruling is that we can't, as a board, grant that request. Are directed or authorized to grant it by higher authority.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I agree that, I think that makes a world of sense.
I mean,
If we're directed or authorized by higher authority to do it, then I suggest we can address it at the next meeting. But I don't think we can approve now the request.
And that's the request that we go, or that's the position we tell Peter to take with this applicant.
Right, exactly.
And that's what I was looking for, is just something to take back to him so I can say, I asked and this was the outcome.
Good.
Should we be allowed? Does anybody disagree with what Eric said?
Does anybody disagree?
Oh, yeah. That's
All right,
great.
so we're all on the same.
under the current circumstance, I'd lean toward granting it, but I would not want to set precedent, and before doing so, I would want to see guidance from on high. whether
Right,
it's the
exactly.
village attorney or the village
I
council.
mean, there's a lot of people who can't make it and have an applicant in
Yeah.
their stead, right?
And we're
Yeah, well,
really-
I had a toothache today. I want to come in by Zoom.
We're dealing with a maybe
Completely
here,
open
too.
yourself up.
You know, let's
Exactly.
move on.
So, Peter, does that give you what you need to get back?
That's enough for me.
Okay.
That works for me.
As empathetic as possible.
All right, the next meeting is December 17th, 2020, which will be the last 2020.
Correct.
No?
But
Of
I
this
got one
August
issue I want
body.
to talk about.
Beg your pardon?
I have that one issue that I want to raise.
Okay.
Before, Peter, excluding this situation with a person in Houston, do you have any sense for what might be on our agenda for December 17?
That's the only one that I'm aware of at this point. That doesn't mean that somebody can't drop an application off, Tuesday.
And you're still going with the 3-week?
Yeah, we haven't formally changed that yet,
Yeah, okay.
in the guidelines. The guidelines say 3 weeks.
Are we going to need to have a work session? Not before 2020 ends, probably, but.
I would think not,
Not in December, I wouldn't.
but it's busy between now and, Santa Claus comes and all that sort of thing. But we do need to have a
Yeah.
work session. We're able to schedule.
We can
one.
arrange for one if you guys want.
Right after the first of the year would be my recommendation, after we get past the holidays.
Get 2020 behind us.
Right.
Hopefully some of its thorns, too.
Tom, you
I
had
will
something to
send out an
raise?
email
Yes.
to coordinate that work session.
Okay?
Okay?
I think tonight taught us that we need to change some things with major COAs.
I'm not so sure, but we can talk about it.
Tom?
Okay, I have a request of staff, and probably this is another one that needs to go upstairs. It sounds like a simple request, but I'm not so sure it's as simple as it is. Typically, we get our packages on late Friday. This week, as many of you know, that didn't happen until Monday. Now, granted, they were electronically there, but they weren't physically there. I would like to make a request, and I want to see people's feelings of it, is that that be moved back to Thursday, such that we can come down here anytime on a Friday and pick them up. So anytime on Thursday, as long as they're
Well, that might
the
tie
front
into
desk.
this whole 3-week issue, right? Because
It's going to add into that, I
Yeah.
think so, yes.
And while you're asking that, I had asked Eric and Peter separately, is there a reason legally why we can't get them a day or more in advance if they're even available? Maybe just, if you have it ready on paper copy, you could just hand it to us. I don't see why it would be an issue legally, but maybe someone else knows something.
The selection, I think, is up to the village on the dates and times and places they want
I mean,
to do
because
those kinds of things.
we're the ones who have to really, fly spec these more than most members of the public do. And it just seems only fair that we'd have a little more lead time.
And we do
Oh,
have
but-
2 or 3
I don't think we
people.
need it.
And
Well,
we do
I
have
think
2
it
or
would be
3
nice.
people. And we do have 2 or 3 people that actually have a job. I mean, I'm retired and a little more flexible.
If
but
this
there are other
puts a
people-
burden on the staff, I'm not in favor
Well,
of it.
that's why we need to talk about the
Well, I think the whole,
3-week, too.
I'm just asking for, instead of having them, because if you leave it at Friday, here's what happens. If Friday, I get an email at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that it's ready. So if I'm not available between 3 and 5 to stop and pick it up, I can't normally get it until Monday morning.
So,
I don't have the weekend to work on it, is the so. That's the problem that it blocks for me and other people as well, I presume.
There's
Which
got to
is
be a
when
way
I
we
fo-
can accommodate staff and our schedule.
Right,
don't
so
see it. I mean, the limited, we have 3 more days there to work on it, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
But some people work, and they have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and they're actually off work.
There's the evenings. You're not working all the days.
Time of year, it's kind of hard to see things after dark.
All my point is, I think we have plenty of time. We certainly did with this four issues. We certainly did.
Okay, that's your opinion, and you're welcome to it, sir.
Likewise.
Assuming it is not a burden on the staff, I would agree with Tom, because I do work full-time, and it's easier if I can do this Saturday and Sunday, not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In the summer, it's less of an issue because it is lighter later, but
Kelly's got a point that she wants to bring up too, I think, in this matter.
I just want to make sure everyone prefers hard copies versus electronic, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But there also is, it's on the net. You can go to the net. So they've already accomplished giving you that advance information that you could work on it on your off days.
If you had more time, Peter, that would enable you to get them, and everybody else on staff, right, to get them to us sooner. So I think that the crunch is the 3-week. That's the problem, I'm guessing.
This time specifically, I did have time, but as you guys know,
Yeah.
I wasn't in the office Thursday and Friday.
Right.
No, that's okay.
That
So
happens,
This
and I'm
was
not-
just, I think, a combination of bad timing.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, there were staff members that were out this past time,
Right.
but the broader picture is, if our goal has been, which is this policy that's been set, and it's set such with village councils, that the agenda packets can be made available 5 days prior to the meeting. So for our advisory boards that meet on Thursdays, that basically means end of that work week prior to, because Peter, Kelly, nor myself are planning on coming in on the weekends to get agenda packets ready. Let's hope it never
I'm
gets
not
to that
asking
point.
that by any stretch of the imagination.
But it kind of plays on the point you're trying to make, that some folks have certain time and that they work, other times they don't. So it is a little bit more involved than just maybe moving it back a day, at least for now, because we are and have been moving into a more digital environment. We now have a fully functioning online permit center. Peter is joining us from his humble abode, and we have all these other technologies available now. It may come to a point where we're requiring solely digital submittals from our applicants. Previously, what this commission and the application requirements had been is that, and kind of technically still is that they provide 10 copies, 10 hard copies, full-size set plans, and the staff uses that to distribute. So the only thing that staff's really working on is the additional supplemental staff material that we've been providing, which typically, with a 3-week submittal deadline, it's not outlandish. We've been operating under that since 2006, and it hasn't been a problem.
Tom, I even wanted to ask you the question because the next meeting, according to the schedule, is your last. So what difference does it make to you?
I would take Tom's position.
Wait a minute, let me get an answer.
I believe, and Peter, I think I saw, may not be true.
It is his last meeting for his term, but he has one more term. So everybody on HPC serves
3 terms.
Pardon?
3
Yeah,
terms.
3
they
terms.
want to, each
3
being
terms.
2 years.
I thought it was 2 terms.
No, 3 times
2 3-year terms.
It's either 2 3 years or 3 2s.
Yeah.
Depending on the advisory committee. This one is 3 2s, I believe. Is that correct, Peter?
Yes.
That is correct. BOA and P&Z, I believe, are the 2 terms in 3 years.
Yeah, they're different. I looked it up not long ago, too. Right. It said, so I believe, and I believe Peter's even reached out to me to confirm that whether I want to do that, because I guess I get a vote in whether I agree to or not agree to go to another term. And I do agree to go to another term. So the answer to your question is dependent upon the council's approval of my request to be added to a 3rd term of 2 years. I may or may not be here beyond the next meeting, is the best I can offer you to an answer.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
I think the point that Tom is making is one that applies, at least potentially, to all of us. I think it would be, for most of us, very desirable if we could have the materials before the weekend that precedes our meeting. If the staff looks at this and says, it's just not doable, it puts too much of a strain, and so forth and so on, then obviously we understand that. And if they say, hell yes, we can do it, then we say, thank you very much, we'd like you to. So we've raised the issue, and we hope that you'll
I just want to add to
what you can do.
I just want to add one thing to that. And the reason I ask for paper many times is because when I go visit a site, I don't take my laptop with me to be able to take notes or anything on it. And I don't, if I have the package in front of me with the drawings and so on, it makes it much more, paper makes it much more convenient in the field. Now, if the village decides they want to buy all of us a tablet or a laptop to take with us, then by all means, I would be amenable to that. But until such time that I have the ability to take something with me to the site that I visit so that I can take notes on it, either electronically or by pen, I would like to have it over that weekend.
Is this
so that I
something we
can have
could discuss in the work session, perhaps? Because it seems to go hand in hand with, again, that 3-week period, which is a real crunch, I'm guessing.
Well, we're talking about a day right now.
Yeah.
We're talking about one day. I don't think 1 week makes 1 day.
Okay.
But I think, Peter Kelly, what I would maybe recommend, maybe making a step forward is make it a goal of ours. Maybe just let's see what we can do for now. I don't think that's where we would hit that mark 100%. But I think if we can get it 99% of the time, I think we can make it. I
And
explained
I'm
to
not
Tom.
arguing, and I
Yeah.
absolutely understand that things will come up, like Peter not being able to come in.
Vacation.
There's 100 things that could come up. But
Because as I explained to Tom, a lot of what you guys don't see is there's a lot that happens on the back end. Peter's working like the first week with the applicant, right? The next week, he's working on preparing his stuff. And then we're working on finalizing it, it gets laid on 2, sometimes 3 sets of eyes, then it gets submitted, then it goes through a workflow. So it is dependent on, it's even dependent on folks outside of the planning inspections department. Sometimes the workload's going to change, but I think it's a realistic goal that we can get it done. I don't think there's been many times when I've witnessed, and I have a personal goal myself with my advisory boards, that it's out of my hands that Wednesday. Now, then it's, relied upon other folks and other people's schedule who are much more busier and dealing with much more high-level stuff than most cases we are. But if we can make it a goal and try to work for it, we'll see what we can do. And I've been back and forth with Darren a little bit, just in the past hour or so on this. We'll have a contingency plan in place. Kelly was frantically printing the packets Monday morning when we came in, and that's as we got the news of Peter. So, we're talking a lot of, I wasn't even aware that the meeting was this Thursday. I said, oh, when's the meeting?
Your meeting.
Yeah.
I have a question about the applications themselves. Those are not made public until they're in these packets?
They're online.
They're not widely made available there, but if anyone were to ask for them, yeah, it's public.
Well, that's why I'm wondering why we don't have access to those, because I find that primary source to be the most valuable myself. I look at the application first and then what Peter's, narrative is, but.
And, I mean, that's something that once we know what's going to be on the agenda, Peter, once you say, like, you've got this application, and by next week, there's not another one, you could forward it on, not for any
Just the
discussion.
applications themselves,
Yeah.
just so we could see what's.
You have a basic understanding.
Because
I
I'm
understand.
driving around town, I say, oh, there's a sign, well, that must be up for our next meeting, and it would just be nice if we had the application at the same time that the world knows about.
Because the application would tell me most of what I need to know to
Yes.
go to the site.
Yes.
And look at it and say, all right, they want to change this door and these windows and.
And it's no different than after the agenda's posted, but just keep in mind that, there still may be ongoing talks as
Right.
Peter's doing much more of an in-depth review and analysis. There may be, you need to change this, or so, I mean, of course, that could be
That happens now.
communicated. Of course, the be-all, the end-alls when they come here to you guys in a public hearing. So I think we hear some concern. I think we can do everything we can to try to make that happen, but it's dependent on a lot of people, and I think internally we can try to see what we can do to move it back a day, but we apologize if we can't hit it.
Thank you. I think this has been very, very productive. Tom, thank you for raising the issue.
Welcome.
Thank you all for the discussion. May I entertain a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second.